Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine 18, and today I have a detailed deck review for you. So not a walkthrough of first impressions, but a detailed review of a deck that I've been enjoying for quite a while now, which is, you'll know from the title of the video, the Spirit Doodle Cards by Space Between the Notes, Elron Mills. So this deck, I've had it for quite some time. I know that from my a little bookmark that came in the package that with the deck that I got, deck number 3, if you can see that. So it's dated September there. So I've been working with this deck for some time, and I really wanted to make a review and share my thoughts because there's a lot that I really like about this deck. And Oracle decks are sometimes hard for me. I've been working with them a lot less length of time than I have with tarot, but this one really checks a lot of boxes for me, and I've really enjoyed working with it, so I wanted to do a review. The reason it's taken me so long is postal mishaps, we'll say. So this deck has a guidebook. You get a PDF downloaded guidebook when you order the deck, and the PDF is a good one, but you can also get optionally a paper guidebook, which is a Lulu print on demand soft cover book, and I wanted the soft cover book, so I was waiting for it, and it was coming from the US, and I'm in Canada, and enough time elapsed that we kind of declared it lost in the mail. Like it came, it was well exceeded its time that I was supposed to be waiting for it. So I contacted Lulu, and they offered me a one-time only. They would print me another one and ship me another one at a better, more reliable shipping method, but with the kind of strongly worded encouragement to pick a more expensive tracked form of shipping next time. So I was grateful for that, and so I waited, and then the book came, and then, wouldn't you know it, about a week later, the lost book was found and arrived. So now I have too many doodles. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, so I'll just put one aside. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the second book because I didn't pay for it or anything. I'm not going to return it to Lulu, but I don't really need to. So we'll see. But I was happy to get the guidebook. So now I can share my full thoughts with the guidebook here as reference. I will say this is not going to be a short one. I'm always like, the video will be so short. This one is not going to be short. I'm not even going to kid myself here. So I'm going to try to timestamp below so that if you want to just look at the flip through of the cards or just my little discussion of the cards, then you can skip ahead, because I do want to spend a little bit of time talking through the guidebook first, because I think that the guidebook is really excellent. I think it's really special. There's a lot that I love about it. I want to talk about it before I get to the cards, so I'll stamp that through. I'm going to be referring to the paper guidebook, but I will just say that the PDF guidebook that comes with the deck is quite good as well. I've been using it on my Kindle Oasis, so it's black and white, or grayscale, I guess. It is a PDF. It is a tagged and well formatted PDF, so on my Kindle I can click through the table of contents and select different chapters and go straight there. Not all PDFs on the Kindle work that nicely, so I'm glad it is a very much a functional PDF. If you didn't want to spend, I think it was maybe 20 Canadian dollars for me to get the paper guidebook, if you didn't want to buy that, then you would be perfectly fine if you like a PDF guidebook. But I do think that the guidebook is a really great part of this deck. So, the paperback book. It's nice. It's shiny. It is full color. And so I thought I would just work through a little bit of what the contents of the guidebook have to offer here and how it's organized, so you get a good feel for the guidebook and why I like it so much. So the guidebook has a foreword written by Tom Benjamin, who I'm sure folks will know. Tom Benjamin has a YouTube channel as well and produces great tarot content and was also the author of Tarot on Earth, a great book on Marseille, particularly about learning Marseille or pip decks. So he wrote the foreword, and I have underlined and tabbed various things that I thought would be good to share here that folks might be interested in. So something that Tom Benjamin says about this deck that, having worked with it, I would echo very much, is the statement that a good deck, quote, a good deck should offer an invitation to explore, guide us just enough, and then step back to let us do the heavy lifting life requires. Elron's Spirit Doodle cards offer that very thing. I agree very much. We'll see that the artwork style in the Spirit Doodle cards is quite abstract and lends itself to interpretation. Okay, so after Tom Benjamin's foreword, Elron Mills, the creator, gives us a preface to the guidebook, and he describes the process of channeling sessions with guides as leading over a number of years to the set of cards that we get with the Spirit Doodle cards. And I really like the way that in his preface, Elron really emphasizes that you can make the cards your own, you can deck modify, you can leave cards out that don't work for you, and that really there's no right or wrong way to read the cards. It's not about kind of correct interpretations. The guidebook, we'll see in a second, contains like a lot for each card, but it's very non-prescriptive in a way. It's not presented as this is the one right way to work with these cards, or this is the one right interpretation of the card. It's very, very open-ended, and it's good because it feels like inviting, right? You can take as much or as little of the meaning from the guidebook as you want, and really work with the cards however works for you, which is true, I think, of every deck, really. I think that we, make things work for us all the time, but it's nice to have that kind of go-ahead, I think it's nice that I feel like a lot of thought in terms of the guidebook and the cards, a lot of thought went into us, right? Like the people who are actually going to be working with this. What is that going to look like? Well, that could look like a lot of things. And the guidebook really kind of invites just experimenting and making the deck your own, which I think is fantastic. And so Elron writes, for example, okay, what am I actually looking at? Well, that depends on you, which is why I love these so much. At different times, you'll see different things. There's no right or wrong, so go with your gut and imagination. Right? So you can read them any way you like. And he encourages asking clear questions, but beyond that, it's not, it's not particularly prescriptive. You could work with this if you've never worked with Oracle cards before, I think, which is great. But for someone who, is well seasoned, we'll say, in Tarot or Oracle, it's just as great. He notes in this few last words section of the preface, Elron notes that he made a conscious choice to make the entries for each of the cards personal and subjective. And he says, I wanted you to have my thoughts and experience of these issues as a reference, so that it might read differently than a little white book often does, in the sense that it is very much a lot of first person, a lot of kind of anecdotal tidbits about the creator's experience with each card, or related kind of experiences that he thinks of when he thinks of each card, and so on. And I have some Oracle decks that do this, and I don't think it's always successful, because some of them, if it's not also paired, I think, with this kind of tone of the forward that's very much, this is my interpretation, you'll make your own interpretation and there's no right answer. If that piece is missing, then sometimes I feel like the really personal, subjective first-person guidebook can be a bit weird, because it's like, well, this card means this because one time I had this experience, and so I connect the two in my mind. It's like, okay, well, is that significant to me? I don't know. But I think it's really effective here, because there is so much like a consistent thread of inviting personal connection and personal interpretation, and not being kind of doctrinaire or like my way or the highway about the meanings. So I really, really appreciate that, actually. And I really like the first person, and I really like the I and the anecdotal that kind of tone that is shared in the guidebook. So I really like that. And then something that I think is really great about this guidebook, and one of my favorite aspect of this guidebook, is that L. Ron has gone through and made a massive selection of correspondences for each card. So besides the kind of personal reflection of what the card means for him, and personal thoughts about what the card might be communicating as a message, there are also, and I'm looking down reading the guidebook here, there are also quotations. There are keywords, and it says, again, feel free to add your own keywords. So again, very inviting of like playfulness, which I really like. There are shadow meanings, though L. Ron specifies he did not intend the deck to be used with reversals, though you could. I'll show it in a minute. The back is not 100% reversible, but like you could easily work with reversals if you wanted to. I haven't thus far. There are also emotion when you get this card, emotion to develop that could be healing when you get this card, affirmations, self-care activity associated with each of the cards, which I'm a big fan of. The Neo Tarot does this as well, which I've reviewed before. Love a self-care activity. Musical associations. I really like musical associations. I have a strong background in music, and I really like when that's included. So I have actually just another example of a musical associations I think done really well. A cookbook that I really like, Afro Vegan by Bryant Terry, does this as well. So for each of the recipes, there's a soundtrack, and there's a song or an album shared, and I will totally listen to the music and when I'm cooking from this book. So I really appreciate that. And I've mentioned, I think, I've mentioned in the context of another video that I'm intending to buy a electric piano or full-size keyboard in the new year to get back to piano, and I'm hoping to maybe incorporate playing some of the music that is included here for the associations, which really runs kind of a range of genres. There's musicals, there's classical, there's pop music, there's all kinds of stuff here. There are trees that are mainly based on ohm associations, which are not something I know anything about, to be honest. There are animal associations. There are elemental associations, which are on the card. There are chakra associations, crystals, guides drawn from kind of mythology and things like this, so not the animal association. And extra, so any other books, films, and so on. So there's a ton packed in here. And what's nice, again, about the kind of flexibility of this deck is you could work with as much or as few, as many or as few of these associations as you wanted. So I'll talk a little bit at the end of the video about how I've worked with the deck personally. But I, for example, like chakras are not a part of my practice. I don't engage with that in any way. So that's an association that I would not ever use. But for another reader of this deck, that may be the correspondence out of the list that resonates most with them, right? And that's totally fine. And I feel like you can kind of go as deep into or as not at all into the provided correspondences as you want. I've predominantly worked with the musical association, so if I've picked a particular card, I'll listen to maybe one or more of the musical associations that are provided, some of which I've been, familiar with in advance, and some of which I haven't, so you're kind of discovering some new music as well, which is nice. I work with elemental associations, so I appreciate those very much. I read the others. Sometimes I'll, try to engage with the crystal association if I have something in my little crystal collection that goes with it. But I don't so much work with the ohm associations because it's another thing that I just don't really know a lot about, but someone else might. So that there are so many offerings here is, I think, really, really special and makes, I did not hesitate at all, and I was really bummed when I got lost. I did not hesitate at all to buy the paper copy of the guidebook, and I've bookmarked it, and I've used it, and I've penciled in it. I think it's really, really well done, and really, really special and stands out. And I don't have any Oracle deck that has a book quite like this one. So really, really special. And maybe I'll go through, and maybe we could read one at the end, some of the associations if we pick a card at the end. But right now, we've been here for quite a while, and I haven't gotten to the cards yet. So we'll talk about the cards. Before I get to the cards, one last thing to mention, and I will link below, is that in addition to the guidebook, Alron on his channel, Space Between the Notes, also has a series of Spirit Doodle Cards videos. So there's a little bit on kind of the making of the deck and the publication of the deck, but there's a walkthrough introducing the deck, sharing the book, walking through the cards, and providing a sample reading. I deliberately didn't watch the card one until I had worked with the cards myself for a while, because I didn't want, to be turning over the card and kind of immediately having his kind of narration in my head, because I wanted to kind of come up with my own meanings and get a feel for it a bit for myself first. But they're another great resource, so I'll link the videos about this deck below. So the cards, finally, right? The thing that you probably came here for. Spirit Doodle Cards, they come in this sturdy, hard box. I don't usually like when the box doesn't have the finger hole on the side, but this one opens really easily and just comes off like that. So I feel like that's functionally, that's a pro and a con. It's a pro in that I don't feel like I'm struggling to open the box. The only con, that means I definitely need to make, it's not really a con. The only con is I definitely really need to make a bag or a pouch of some sort for this deck, because I feel like I am afraid to just toss this in my purse and go because of the ease with which the box opens, right? Minor quibble. But that's entirely fine. So the cards are scat size. I was not familiar with scat size as a thing, but they're 2.32, I've got some notes over here, that's why I'm looking. They're 2.32 inches by 3.58 inches. It's 330 GSM cardstock, and again, there's 50 cards. So to compare to a playing card, there's a playing card, and here's the Spirit Doodle. The Spirit Doodle card is a smidge taller and a smidge narrower. And here I'm comparing it to not just any playing cards, but the holographic cat, 3D cat cards. So that's maybe another video. So the scat size, a bit taller and wider. The cardstock is good. The 330 GSM is good. It's bendy, but not too bendy. It's definitely riffle shuffleable. I don't usually riffle shuffle, but there it is. I mentioned the backings. They have their own doodle, and it's hard to capture it in, on video, but it really looks like it's glowing, which is really neat. They're really nice in person. The backs, so you can see that the doodle, it's not quite reversible, but you would not, at least I wouldn't, I would not notice that it wasn't reversible if I shuffled it with reversals, but so far I haven't. So in addition to the 50 cards, you get a cover card that has a link to the creator's website. You also get, and again, I feel like this is a really inviting deck, and I think that that's a great thing. And something that you get that just speaks to that again is that you get some blank cards, so you could make your own addition to the deck and make your own doodles. I haven't done that yet. I'm going to maybe have to experiment a little bit on the title card, because I'm not sure with the finish what kind of markers or pens would stick well and not be smudgy. But I do think that's a really cool idea. I'm kind of hesitant to do it, honestly, because I feel like I can't draw. I don't even know if I can doodle. I mean, I want to say like everybody can doodle, and I will doodle in the book for sure and have a great time doing it. But like, I can't draw. So I don't want to like mess up the lovely Oracle deck with my own additions in a way. We'll see. So there's some extra cards there. And now I've just put the cards into the order that they are numbered, which again is also the order in the book, right? So they're numbered 1 to 50. And so we will just walk through the cards. Hopefully the camera will cooperate enough, focus enough that they're clear. So you'll see on each card, this is the first card, and it's no. And on this card, we get a elemental association in one corner. We get the number and the keyword or phrase. And then you get this doodle. And in the book, the doodles are described as these line drawings where he's colored in kind of alternate spaces and left alternate spaces blank. And some of them have more than one color. So they are, again, quite abstract. This is a kind of deck that, I made a video a little while ago, VR, to Casper, the boy diviner, about decks that intimidate me. And when I first started working with Oracle decks, a deck like this would have been on that list for me because it's so abstract. And because the keywords and phrases are very open-ended, I don't think that any of them are solely positive or solely negative, which I think is a hard thing to do. So I think this is a deck I would have been terrified of, years ago, but now it's like what I look for, in its kind of open-endedness and in its playfulness and in its ability to mean lots of different things, and cards mean one thing in one reading and something completely different in another. I think that that's really great. And I forgot to mention in my big long ramble about the guidebook, I did forget to mention that there are a couple of spreads provided here. There are three. A solve the problem spread, connecting to spirit spread, and an 8 gift spread. So they're all quite large, 6 cards or more. But the small size of the deck lends itself to that. So that's great. So going to the cards, we have no. And when I look at the no card, I can't help but see an X in there somewhere. It looks like an X to me. Come on, camera. No. And after no, we of course get yes. And so the yes card has a water association. And you can, I'm probably not going to be able to get this to show up on the video, but something that's nifty, what a word, nifty. Something that's nifty about this is like when you look closely at the deck, you can tell where it's colored. Like it doesn't look, computer like paint can filled. Like you can almost see, like not quite the pen strokes, but you can kind of see in there the slight kind of inconsistencies that are, indicative of a hand, like a handmade feel, which is nice. The third card is higher self. I won't necessarily say all my thoughts about all of these cards. You'll see this one is associated with spirit. So in the elemental associations, there's fire, water, air, earth, and the circle to indicate spirit. Protection. This one always feels like when I see this one for protection, I see like a hand, like putting up a hand and saying like, no. Laying down like a boundary as a kind of protectiveness, which I like. Wisdom. When I see wisdom card, I think of the wisdom of kind of knowing what matters and what doesn't, and kind of keeping things in perspective, like between the kind of very small and the very large and expansive. That's what I think of with wisdom. Meditate. This one feels like, I have struggled with meditation, and it's like there's almost this sense of like the outward, more calmness on the outside, and then there's like a lot going on inside, so I find that a interesting and relatable, for me, image for meditate. Cherish. The first time I saw this one, I thought it looked like a fishbowl. But you can tell it's like the red is like a special cherished thing, and it's being taken care of there and guarded, to me. Anyway, you might see something different, right? Be still. I see the eye of the storm here. And this card actually, maybe this is one where you can kind of see the hand colored aspect there. Be still. And to me, this is definitely the eye in the middle of the cyclone card. Accept. See a kind of intermingling there. Let go. There's like a releasing feel to this one. Nourish. I think this one looks like a funnel to me. But there's like a sense of like an opening that could be filled with something that's nourishing, is how I think of that one. I'm sorry, I know that the focus isn't the best. I'm doing my best with my webcam. Number 12 is learn. And I like that one. This one reminds me of an hourglass. So I think of learning taking time, and also, needing a good foundation to build upon for learn. Receive. Change speed. And these cards are interesting because they do, to me, capture speed. And you can see the kind of what I think looks like a vertical kind of lemniscate. Feels really speedy to me, where the kind of circular motion feels a little bit slower, but who knows? But I like that kind of air and earth together. That could be speed up or it could be slow down, right? Depending on the context. Ground. This one feels very tree-like to me, and think about roots and extending the core kind of downward. Stop interfering. This is an important message, I think. I really like this as a kind of keyword prompt. And that could be interfering in any number of things, right? Stop trying to control everything. Stop getting up in other people's business. Could be lots and lots of things. But it's like step back, Center. Which could be, it could be kind of, you need to center yourself, but it could also be, like in the context of a reading, maybe it's what's the core of the issue. Communicate. I kind of see a speech bubble here. I'm not sure if that's what I would see if it didn't say communicate on it, but that's what I think of. Turning the abstraction of thoughts into concrete, communicable, like speech or imagery. Own your power. Love that. Number 20, decide. And it doesn't tell you how to decide, right? That could be in a bigger reading. There would be other cards to help you think about that, right? But I feel like in this card, there's this kind of, nebulous, perhaps indecision going on, and then Whatever option is up here maybe is being pointed to as like you're getting out of the indecisiveness and like pointing to something in a concrete way. Put boundaries between you and what? Could be lots of things, right? Express. It feels like this is where the expression is coming from, and it's like emanating outwards to me. Act. Like, do something about it. Find your intention. Keep it simple. I like that message too. Turn on the light, associated with fire and spirit. It feels like a fiery card. To me, it's a little bit like a candle flame. Could mean a lot of things. See things more clearly. Find some illumination, a source of guidance. Look at things in a clear way. Magnet. This is an interesting one. I've never drawn this card, and like it looks like a magnet. It also, to me, totally unrelatedly, kind of looks like a chromosome. I don't know. Probably it doesn't really look like a chromosome, but that's what I thought of. So here you could think of maybe cards on opposite sides being attracted to each other, or wanting to pull something towards yourself or repel something, right? Because magnets repel too, so depending on the context. Sacred space. I love this one. Hold the energy. Again, what the energy is could be a lot of things. Music. I love that there's a music card. This one feels, it almost feels like a little bit treble clef in the center there. It feels very much like a music card to me. Very, a lot of motion and kind of different elements combining together. Ask. Also known as don't be presumptuous, right? It's like assuming makes the ass of you and me, that phrase of assume. Ask. Collaborate. Work together. And this one actually, I will say collaborate kind of reminds me of a rocket ship, which makes me think of the collaboration of Star Trek, which is one of my favorite things in the world. Miracle. This is like this one makes me think of like the first buds opening in the springtime. Miracle around with the snow around it. Channel. It's like opening to what's above, to hear messages or receive messages in whatever ways you do. Spirit. Of course, with the spirit element at the bottom. Let go of resistance. This is a kind of flip in a way to stop interfering. It's like on one hand, it's like stop messing with things, and then it's like stop trying to stop things that maybe you shouldn't be, It makes me think of the Wheel of Fortune in some ways. Faith. Healing. Time. Love. I like this love card. It reminds me a little bit of a heart. A heart, not like the shape, like the anatomical organ shape of a heart. Embrace abundance. Rest. I need this one a lot. Transform. There's like a lot of colors in that one. Change your perception. and I can't remember, this actually reminds me of, I can't remember if it's in the guidebook or if it's in one of his videos that Elrond talks about. I think he talks about like whether you see the kind of empty space, like the uncolored spaces or the colored spaces first, and like how that changes how you might look at the doodle, and that prompt always reminds me of that. Integrate, joy, fear, and this one actually, like, this one is one that I have like feels about. It very much, this feels like my anxiety and how I think about it. Like, if this is kind of, you know, the mind and just spiraling out of control with like all the things that could happen, but probably won't. So that feels like fearful to me, this card. Lead. Change positions. So some of them kind of have, this is almost kind of like two doodles in my opinion, right? And I think of like get off the sofa when I see this one. And respect. And I really like this respect card. I feel like it's, you know, with all of the different colors, it's kind of like respecting difference and diversity and you know, the complementarity of different things. I think there's a lot going on here that I really like. So that's respect. So that is the 50 Spirit Doodle cards. I really, really like them, and I've really enjoyed working with them. So I'm going to just shuffle as I talk. Maybe I'll shuffle over away from the microphone. So I've been working with the Spirit Doodle cards a couple of ways. One is with as a one card draw, and then when I've worked with them in the one card draw, that's when I will really delve into the guidebook a bit. So if I pick a Spirit Doodle card of the day, then I will look at all the associations and pick kind of what I would work with that day. So that would be like listening to some of the musical associations, maybe reading something about an animal in the animal associations. If I have maybe an oracle deck with animals in it that has that animal in there, or like thinking about how I personally, with my associations, personal associations with things like animals and crystals would make the connection between the card and that. So it's a kind of, there's a lot of kind of material for reflecting or for journaling, to use a card as a daily draw, or a one card draw. I've also used these in spreads with other cards, both other oracle decks and tarot decks. I'm still really getting the feel for how combining different decks works for me. It's not something that I've been doing for very long, except for as in a kind of pull one clarifying oracle card at the end kind of way. Like doing bigger spreads with multiple decks is fairly new to me, but I have been using this one in that way, and the smaller size really lends itself well to that. My first ever oracle deck that I ever owned was the Earthbound Oracle by Skull Garden, and that's a small, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same size, but that's a small deck as well. And I really like the small oracle cards to go with, to go in the larger spreads. I've done one of the spreads in the guidebook, and the spread that I did was this one called, like when you put a whole bunch of Post-its in and then you don't know which Post-it goes to what. The 8 gifts. Choose 8 cards and lay them out. These are 8 gifts that you were given to develop and enjoy. And this is a kind of, like I experienced that as kind of a self-loving or self-affirming, self-acknowledging, stop beating myself up kind of spread, which I like. And it's interesting when you get, you know, when you have this spread to think about gifts and you get cards that, you know, might not at first glance, you know, feel like a gift, right? Because I do think this deck is quite balanced. It's not all, you know, they're not affirmation cards. And it's interesting, you know, when you get a card like fear and thinking about fear as a gift, right? And like, what does that mean? Lots of complicated feelings about that one. So yeah, the 8 gift spread, one card readings with tarot. I've paired it. I found that this deck, this deck gets along with others really well, because it is, again, it's very open-ended. It's abstract. It has a fairly diverse color palette. It looks good beside a lot of other decks, and it kind of complements a lot of other decks. I really liked putting these alongside the Dreamtime reading cards by Laura Bowen, and I've also had these with tarot decks as well. So yeah, it gets along well with others. So I thought that maybe just at the end of this review, we could pick one card and then look at the associations that are provided so that you get a feel for really like how much is packed into that guidebook. So we'll pick one just at random, maybe not with a particular question in mind. Music. So, happy to get the music card. And so it's number 30. So for each card you get a fair amount. So there's this one page, and then all of that, and another little bit up here. So you get like 4 pages almost, or 3.5 pages for music. So for the music card, we get 3 quotations here. I'll just read the first quote. Is from Beethoven, who says that music is the mediator between the spiritual life and the sensual life. And I think like life of the senses, right? And I'll just read a tiny little bit of what he's written. Music has incredible power. It is a universal language that connects us all, regardless of age, race, or gender. When we listen to music, we come into alignment with the divine. It has the power to change us at our core and to shift our consciousness. And I agree with that. So there's then it goes on for another 1.5 pages or so. So then there's a section called When This Card Comes Up. And there we go. It focused so well for so long. It says, when this card comes up, you're asked to find what it is that inspires you and to remember that we are all connected to one another as well as the divine. Separation from one another is an illusion. You will benefit from listening to music, but choose wisely because music has the power to change your reality, which is true. So then there is a prompt, keywords, shadows, emotion, when you get the card, emotion to develop, affirmation, self-care activity, and I'll share. Maybe I'll just focus on the things that I've worked with the most from the guidebook. So I've worked with the self-care activities, and for music, the self-care activity is listen to the music of someone whom you admire and love, or listen to an artist you don't know. Put on your favorite song or piece, make up a song, sing in the shower. If you feel goosebumps, you are on the right track. So again, like very open-ended. And I talked a little bit in my review of the Neo Tarot about how kind of self-care associations and self-care activity prompts can be difficult, right? Because something that might be really supportive and self-caring for one person could be really like difficult or problematic for another person, and it's hard to kind of make self-care activity recommendations for strangers. I think that that's really, really difficult. But the activities that are in here are kind of open-ended. I keep just saying open-ended. Are kind of flexible enough that I feel like you can make it something that works for you no matter what, or at least I have been able to. So the affirmation, music is God whispering the answers. I use music to heal myself and others now. Mozart's second movement from Piano Concerto number 21, Elvira Madigan. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Schubert's Ninth Symphony, anything sung by Edith Piaf or Ella Fitzgerald, and any other sublime music of your choosing. The point of this card is to help you acknowledge the fundamental truth that music has the unparalleled power to change the human condition, not to point you in a specific direction or tell you which music you should listen to. So anything that is sublime. And I will actually say, not completely, but this deck is actually kind of related to or part of my desire for 2020 to return to piano again, and to make that part of my life again, maybe to start performing a little bit again, once I get my muscle memory back. I haven't had a piano in my house in a long time, but there's a lot of classical music in here, which you don't always get recommended, and it's been nice to revisit like a lot of pieces that end up sounding like really familiar, some of which I'm sure I've played in the past, but which the names have long escaped me. So I've really enjoyed that. For music, it has the Tree Association of Willow, and for those who are familiar with Ohm, also Sea Energy or More Animal, Frog, and Nightingale. That makes sense. They're both pretty noisy animals who make their own music. Element, Spirit, Chakra, All, Crystal, Chrysocolla, Amethyst, Turquoise, Carnelian, Zincite or Zincite, and Labradorite. I really like a number of those, Amethyst and Chrysocolla and Labradorite in particular. Guides, Johann Sebastian Bach, Nina Simone, Archangel Gabriel, Jupiter, Apollo, any great composer or musician that you admire and love. And I really like this idea of, a guide or a source of kind of inspiring messages of wisdom can really be anyone, right? Extra, read or watch High Fidelity, or read, a surname that I am not even going to try to say, Flow, a study of the state of inspiration. And it says, you can also create a playlist on YouTube or other platform with some of your favorite music under specific subject headings. You are welcome to check out the playlists on my channel at Space Between the Notes, which reminds me, there are playlists of the music associated with these cards. So that's another resource that I had failed to mention. So thank you, Guidebook, for reminding me of that. So that's the Spirit Doodle cards, my in-depth review. And I'll just, conclude again by saying I really appreciate this deck. I really enjoyed working with this deck and know that I will continue to enjoy working with this deck. So if this is one that calls out to you, I really think that you can't go wrong with the Spirit Doodle cards. And I'll link the information again on where you can get your very own Spirit Doodle cards below. Yeah, thank you for watching my review, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye.